Marxist Equality. www.rightsidernews.com. At its heart, Marxism, the core ideology of socialism, contains an irrational, utopian and coercive perversion of human equality. Marxism seeks and enforces equality in situations where equality does not exist, demanding legal enforcement of equal societal outcomes including those related to economics, religion and human sexuality. This ideology even extends to international relationships whereby no nation is allowed to excessively prosper or achieve greatness, i.e., all nations must be equal. Under the guiding hand of academia and mass media, Marxist ideas are slowly and silently transforming the mental attitudes of Americans. We fail to recognize Marxist equality at work, for example, when elementary schools do not keep score during athletic events. We must not hurt little Johnny's feelings when another team scores more goals or points. That is inequality, never mind that athletic competition results in a form of natural and healthy inequality with an appreciation for both success and failure. In Lincoln, Massachusetts, the town's teams are balanced to ensure that each is equally strong. Collegiate Title IX rules are a form of cultural Marxism since equal numbers of men's and women's athletic programs are enforced instead of equal liberty for students to create teams. This form of Marxist thinking is called gender equity, but Marxist thinking is dysfunctional in the real world, frustrating the liberty and the right of individuals to pursue athletic recreation. Affirmative action is also a form of Marxism since it forces equal ethnic or racial outcomes rather than equal standards for all. Under Marxism, the economic outcome of hard work and creativity must be equal to that of laziness or incompetence. The values of American Judeo-Christian culture must be seen as equal to that of totalitarian Islam, and the value of heterosexual marriage must be equal to that of homosexuality, etc. In the end, theophobic Marxism demands that good must equal evil, because that is the ultimate inequality. Communism has never concealed the fact that it rejects all absolute concepts of morality. It scoffs at any consideration of good and evil as indisputable categories. Communism considers morality to be relative, to be a class matter. Depending upon circumstances and the political situation, any act, including murder, even the killing of thousands, could be good or could be bad. Alexander Solzhenitsyn Marxism, as a corollary to irrational government forced equal outcome, unjustly demands rules and laws which restrict freedom. Envision a sprinter weighed down by leaded shoes and required to dodge hidden tripwires. Since his competitor has no such burden, one achieves enforced equal outcome, or engineered defeat. Ordinary hard-working, tax-paying, state-supporting middle-class Americans are the impeded runner under an increasingly Marxist economic system, the new bourgeoisie, and their burden is excessive taxation earmarked for redistribution to state-supported intellectuals and the non-disabled new proletariat in return for votes. Because under Marxism, the bourgeoisie and proletariat must be forced into economic equality regardless of creativity, effort and labor. Karl Marx mistakenly taught that this irrational form of equality is social justice, an idea he picked up from Rousseau in the French Revolution. When the French and other Marxist socialists speak of equality, you should understand its meaning in an Orwellian way. It is a lie. Karl Marx did not believe in equality before life, liberty and property securing law. That is the real social justice of human equality in our Declaration of Independence. Marxist economic equality is based on a government empowered to legally take control of individual private property through excessive taxation, government power which exceeds the limits of our Constitution, and which tyrannically infringes on our unalienable right to the pursuit of happiness, i.e., private property honestly earned through individual creative labor, government power without informed consent. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest, by degree, all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state. Of course, in the beginning, this cannot be effected except by means of despotic inroads on the rights of property. Karl Marx. Under Marxism, the middle class will be gradually reduced to the economic level of existing poverty. You must, therefore, confess that by individual you mean no other person than the bourgeois, than the middle-class owner of property. This person must, indeed, be swept out of the way, and made impossible. Karl Marx. The economic, political and social goal of Karl Marx was the creation of a classless society, a feat of social engineering which destroys the unalienable private property rights of middle-class individuals. Obama's White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, echoed the tyranny of economic Marxist equality in his book, The Plan, Big Ideas for America. We aspire to be a classless society, a middle-class country in which the door of opportunity are open to all. Rahm Emanuel compared the thinking of Rahm Emanuel to that of Karl Marx in this letter from 1852. I do not claim to have discovered either the existence of classes in modern society or the struggle between them. My own contribution was one. To show that the existence of classes is merely bound up with certain historical phases in the development of production. 2. That the class struggle necessarily leads to the dictatorship of the proletariat. 3. That this dictatorship itself constitutes no more than a transition to the abolition of all classes and to a classless society. Karl Marx. Someone needs to remind Rahm Emanuel that proletariat dictatorships never seem to fade away in societies where Marxist socialist governments become unjustly empowered to take control of middle-class individual property, but this is a truth he must already know. After Marxists destroy the dreaded middle class by gaining control of their property, and after ensuring their own wealth, they go about delivering social justice, i.e., creativity destroying property redistribution, ushering in their dystopian dream of Marxist equality, but it turns out to be the equality of serfs, except of course for the ruling Marxist socialist elite and their favorites, and thus you have Orwellian equality, i.e., inequality. Marxism sets up an elite governing class of self-serving, social engineering philosopher kings, an unjust, tyranny-tilted governing system whose features, along with monarchy, oligarchy or fascism, our founding fathers have warned, the issue today is the same as it has been throughout all history, whether man shall be allowed to govern himself or be ruled by a small elite. Thomas Jefferson. Where the law of the majority ceases to be acknowledged, their government ends, the law of the strongest takes its place, and life and property are his who can take them. Thomas Jefferson. Marxist equality was carefully analyzed by Igor Shafevich and Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who both lived under this system of social injustice. Eastern European dissenters directly witnessed the Marxist socialist political system which is tilted toward tyranny, and they know the smell of a corpse. The revolutionaries who drew up the conspiracy of equals understood equality in such a way that they alone formed the government, while others were to obey implicitly, and those who did not were to be exiled to certain islands for forced labor. In the most popular work of Marxism, the Communist Manifesto, one of the first measures of the new socialist system to be proposed is the introduction of compulsory labor. From this point of view, a puzzling and at first sight contradictory property of socialist doctrines becomes apparent. They proclaim the greatest possible equality, the destruction of hierarchy in society, and at the same time a strict regimentation of all of life, which would be impossible without absolute control and an all-powerful bureaucracy which would engender an incomparably greater inequality. Igor Shafevich. And even equality itself, that powerful appeal and great promise of socialists throughout the ages, turns out to signify not equality of rights, of opportunities, and of external conditions, but equality qua identity, equality seen as the movement of variety toward uniformity. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Hayek also understood that the Marxist goal of government-forced economic equality was incompatible with human liberty. A claim for equality of material position can be met only by a government with totalitarian powers. Hayek. Marxist equality requires tyrannical rules or laws which destroy our sacred and unalienable rights to liberty, our freedom to succeed or fail, and our sacred and unalienable right to the pursuit of happiness, our honestly earned private property. What is law which destroys individual, unalienable human rights? Law is often but the tyrant's will, and always so when it violates the right of an individual. Thomas Jefferson. Marxism is the anti-Declaration of Independence. It is an anti-American system in all respects, and Karl Marx was the anti-Thomas Jefferson and the anti-John Locke. Our founding fathers understood that human liberty results in economic inequality, and we know that human liberty results in unequal numbers of sports teams, and unequal scores in games and on tests. That is just human nature. What our founders desired, and what they devised with our Constitution and Bill of Rights, was a system of government, not to force economic equality, but to provide for equal opportunity, i.e., equality before just law which secures rather than destroys our unalienable rights. There are those among us, primarily leaders of the Democratic Party, with some Republicans in tow, who aim for our transition from American equality to Marxist equality. This transition is already occurring, and if we allow it to continue, it will lead to economic ruin and further infringement and eventual destruction of our sacred human liberty and pursuit of happiness. Here in the United States, this process may not transpire exactly as it occurred in the Soviet Union, but the end result could be similar. Ronald R. Cherry, MD, is a board-certified lung specialist who practices in Tennessee. Dr. Cherry believes all liberty-loving Americans must educate themselves on the principles and values held by our founding fathers in order to maintain our hard-earned freedom.